Whales and dolphins die by not having enough energy to surface for air, so they slowly sink into the depths of the ocean and suffocate. What are some not fun facts? Up until the 1980s, babies weren't put on painkillers during surgery. It was believed they didn't feel pain. If you show symptoms of rabies, your chances of dying are nearly 100%. 25,000 people die of hunger every day. There once lived a man known as Tarar who is known as the hungriest man in history. Despite being average to below average weight, he lived his whole life with a nearly endless, insanely ravenous hunger. He would eat anything and everything he could find. Since his family couldn't accommodate him, he took to the streets where he'd eat all the raw meat, rotting fruit, live rodents, and other small animals he could find. He used this horrific skill to become a street performer where people would give him barrels full of cork, huge baskets of apples, more live animals, and sometimes rocks just to witness him swallow it all with ease. There are other disgusting aspects of Tarar's life that are worth reading about. I think the least fun fact about him is that he was caught several times trying to eat bodies from a hospital morgue. He was also suspected to have consumed a toddler at the same hospital. It's one of the most disgusting yet fascinating stories I've ever read. The girl that voiced Ducky in Land Before Time, Judith Barcy, was dead by the time Land Before Time came out. She had been murdered a few months earlier by her father in a double murder-suicide. Her tombstone says yep yep yep. Connorake Synthesymphone, who had escaped Jeffrey Dahmer, was killed shortly after he was returned to Jeffrey Dahmer's care by police. There is a genetic disorder that causes your body to replace your muscle tissue with bone over time. Edit. For those who are wondering, it's called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, FOP. And currently, there is no cure for it. The Nobel Peace Prize was only invented by Alfred Nobel to undo the bad PR done after he invented dynamite. He did not want to be remembered for inventing something that killed people, and for the most part, his plan worked. The youngest girl to ever give birth was 5 years, 7 months, and 21 days old. The youngest picture of you is also the oldest. The Challenger astronauts didn't die when the shuttle exploded. The stack actually just broke apart under aerodynamic stress, and the explosion you thought you saw was just the expanding cloud of hydrogen from the external tank burning. The forces involved in the breakup were very survivable. The crew cabin was left intact after it separated from the rest of the orbiter and may not have depressurized. There's evidence to suggest some or all of them were conscious at least part of the way down, if not the entire time. And photography of the disaster shows the cabin falling without spinning in a nose-down attitude, meaning no excessive forces to knock them out. The impact with the ocean was what actually killed them. It took 2 minutes and 45 seconds from breakup to impact. It's possible that some or all of them were conscious and aware the whole time. If you're going to be murdered, chances are very good you've already met your killer. In Australia, there is a plant called the Gympie Gympie, otherwise known as the suicide plant. When touched, it delivers multiple stings with a long-lasting neurotoxin that is so painful that people would rather kill themselves than living through a few days of excruciating pain, and then further several years of lesser pain, or full reoccurrence in the correct conditions. If the tiny hairs that deliver the stings are not removed or are buried, the pain will continue for years. The pain, which has been described as feeling like being doused in hot acid and being electrocuted simultaneously, is so bad that people have been driven mad by it. Horses who have been stung by this plant have literally thrown themselves off cliffs. An ex-serviceman named Cyril Bromley is known to have fallen into one of the plants during World War II. Driven mad by it, he had to be strapped to a bed to prevent himself from committing suicide. Another rather unfortunate officer is known to have shot himself in the head after using one of the plant's leaves as toilet paper. Rather than live with the pain in his rear end, he chose to end his life. 93% of humans are dead, and almost all of them were forgotten within 3 generations. In their Greek mythology origins, centaurs are all males and procreate solely by the rape of human females. Whales and dolphins die by not having enough energy to surface for air, so they slowly sink into the depths of the ocean and suffocate. Banana republics were coined in the book Cabbages and Kings, about small countries based around single exports that were taken advantage of by large corporations. That company taking advantage of them for the book rebranded and is now called Chiquita. Been thinking about this one a lot lately. You will watch most of the people you love die, and the rest will watch you die. It's guaranteed to happen. The optimal height to hang someone is between 3 to 5 meters. The point of hanging isn't to suffocate the victim, it's to break their neck. Any less than the rope will strangle them to death, and any more they have a chance of being decapitated. That scene at the end of Sherlock Holmes, spoiler, where Lord Blackwood falls off London Bridge and gets hanged by a chain would actually have ripped his head clean off. There's somebody out there that you're completely compatible with and you get along perfectly and it's your perfect partner. But you'll probably never get to meet them. Over 300 people are believed to have jumped from the World Trade Center on September 11th. One of the falling bodies killed a fireman at the scene. On top of that, there are still over 1,000 victims whose remains have not been found. The average human a-hole can stretch to about 8 inches and a raccoon can fit into holes around 4 inches in diameter. This means a raccoon can crawl into your ass. Brain activity has been recorded for up to 10 minutes after death. What is that person experiencing during those last minutes of life? Your lips are made of the same kind of skin your asshole is made of. America's first baseball star, Jim Creighton, died at 21 from a rupture he got from hitting a home run. Male sea otters have forced and violent sex with not only female otters and some pups, but other marine life as well. This often ends in death. Edit: I noticed a lot of questions about whose death occurred during these sexual encounters. The victim is usually the one who dies, as male otters are known to bite and drown their victim as well as having forceful sex. The other marine life usually involved are baby seals and other young pups of other species. I also saw that people mention that they will take part in necrophilia as well. The Great Molasses Flood, sometimes referred to locally as the Boston Molassacre, occurred on January 15, 1919, in the North End neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. 21 people drowned in a wave of hot molasses. If you're attacked by a bear, it won't necessarily try to kill you as other predators would. It just starts eating. Michael Cardamone raped a 15-year-old girl, served 6 years, then got parole. He kidnapped a 49-year-old mother of 2, gagged her, beat her with a hammer, injected battery acid into her, burned her alive, then ran her corpse over with the lady's own car twice. I had to witness this guy go to court to appeal his murder charge for my work experience, and he really gave me the chills. Male dolphins have been observed to gang rape females, kill dolphin babies that are not their own so their mums are available again, and for absolutely no reason other than entertainment brutalize porpoise young. America has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of all prisoners in the world. To be the oldest person in the world, everyone that was alive when you were born has to die. Died on impact is not necessarily a literal term. It can take quite a while to die from blunt force trauma. You are more likely to be killed by a cow than you are by a shark. For a very long time, beheading was used as a form of execution because it was believed it resulted in instantaneous death. For quite some time, there was suspicion that this wasn't the case, but many rules and regulations governing the use of cadavers limited doctors from thoroughly investigating enough to challenge the practice. However, at the turn of the 20th century, a French doctor, Bourru, was permitted to make an investigation of a severed head from a criminal named Langlois, immediately after guillotining. He notes his observations. Here is what I was able to note immediately after the decapitation. The eyelids and lips of the decapitated man worked in irregularly rhythmic contractions for about 4 or 6 seconds. I waited several seconds longer. The spasmodic movements ceased. The face relaxed, the lids half closed in the eyeballs, leaving only the white of the conjunctiva visible, exactly as in the dying whom we have occasion to see every day. It was then that I called in a strong, sharp voice, "Langlois." I then saw the eyelids slowly lift up, without any spasmodic contraction. I insist advisedly on this peculiarity, but with an even movement, quite distinct and normal, such as happens in everyday life, with people awakened or torn from their thoughts. Next, Langlois' eyes very definitely fixed themselves on mine and the pupils focused themselves. I was not, then, dealing with a vague dull look, without any expression that can be observed any day in dying people to whom one speaks. I was dealing with undeniably living eyes which were looking at me. Every person who was ever decapitated was most likely aware of their predicament for a short time following their death. The British East India Company took over Bengal, India, and their policies caused the Great Bengal Famine of 1770. It caused the death of 10 million, a third of the population. There is a whale that has been searching for a mate for the last 5 years. It has been wholly unsuccessful because its voice is a different frequency than other whales. So much so that whales run from it. People diagnosed with autism, high or low functioning, are 10 times more likely to commit suicide than the average neurotypical person. Insect populations have decreased by 80% since the 1980s. You have 1 to 5 minutes to live, but every time you breathe it resets. The oldest living creature ever was a clam named Ming, which was around 900 years old. The scientists accidentally killed it by trying to figure out how old it was. A crocodile's stomach can melt down bones due to its powerful gastric juice. There are most likely people that are stranded at sea or in the desert right now that will probably never be found. Cysticercosis is when a tapeworm manages to lodge itself inside your brain, causing big cysts to form in your head, causing headaches and seizures. The pariah was one of the most barbaric forms of torture ever devised, using electric shocks while the victim was secured to a metal frame to cause unimaginable pain. Shoebill mothers will only raise one chick. So when 2 eggs are laid, the mother will leave the nest to let them hatch. When those eggs hatch, one is always aggressive and violent, and the other chick is always the timid and sensitive one. The violent one immediately rushes out of the egg to assault the timid one on sight. When the mother comes back to see the aftermath, the timid one limps to its mother for comfort and protection. The mother then takes her time beating the timid one to death with her bill, until it's nothing but a mangled lump of meat and bones, and raises the aggressive chick. I saw this in a Netflix documentary on the animals of Africa. David Attenborough actually had to manifest into corporeal form, after the end of that particular scene, to console the viewer and remind us that nature can be scary as frick sometimes. Demodex mites live in the pores of your skin and eat your dead skin cells and oils. They also climb out at night and have a gang bang on your face. Hitler was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Newborn harp seals have 10 days before they are abandoned by their mother. They need to learn how to swim before the ice melts so that they won't drown. Almost all autoimmune diseases include ongoing pain as one of their symptoms. Most people with one autoimmune disease have several more. More women than men get certain autoimmune diseases, but men get them, too. It takes an average of 7 years to get a valid diagnosis. In the meantime, the patient may be suffering on, feeling hopeless. Patients are often told that it's all in their heads. The suicide rate among youth between the ages of 12 to 25 has dramatically increased over the past 10 years. A majority of kidnappings, rapes, and murders are committed by people familiar to the victim. Stranger danger is largely bullshit. If you can smell something, this means that tiny particles of the substance you smell made their way into your nose. Smelling is chemical detection. You cannot do that from afar. This is true for stuff like delicious food as well as poo and whatever. Only 3.2% of all tigers still exist in the wild as compared to the year 2000. Addiction cost Americans roughly $740 billion, estimated. There are more prisons in the United States than there are colleges. And prisons have inmate quotas to meet. There once was a person that had a 300% mortality rate when he did his surgery. More people get conquered by Mount Everest than the people that conquered Mount Everest. Whiskey distiller Jack Daniel couldn't remember his safe combination and kicked the safe in frustration. Got an infection in his toe that killed him. 80% of Russian males born in 1923 did not live past 1945. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.